Welcome to Liesl's Artistic Studio. Now, before we jump into painting today, I want to give you a tiny bit of background first. Now, my thumbnail and title allude to the idea that every beginner watercolorist should watch this video. Now, it's not necessarily because of the painting itself, whether you paint along with me or not, but I hope you will, but because of the struggles that I had while creating it, which I think some of you can relate to. If you are someone who has had one of these thoughts, such as, this artist makes this look so easy to paint, but it's not. Or, why can't I get my painting to look like theirs? And even, I just made a huge mistake and now I've ruined my painting. I'm telling you, I made this video for you. I made some mistakes on this piece today, which took me through quite the journey, and there was a point where I wasn't going to post this video at all. But then after I had time to work through it, to think about it, I decided this is a video that must be shared because I feel that there's something you need to hear. I just want to be real and honest with you here, especially if you're a beginner to painting or are feeling a little frustrated in your watercolor journey. So we'll get into the details of all of that in just a minute, but really quick, let's go over the list of supplies we need for this painting if you feel like following along. So first I've got my watercolor paper that I'm taping to my table with some artist tape. I've also got clean water, watercolor paints, a paper towel, and I'm kind of winging this painting today, so I'm not actually sure what brushes I'll be using, but here I have a round number 10, a round number 6, and maybe a Princeton liner will come in handy as well. A list of all the supplies you see me using today will be listed in the description of this video. So let's go ahead and mix a few colors on our tray to get started with. Now, you're welcome to use the same colors as me, or you can create your own color scheme, whatever you'd like. So let's start off with some ultramarine blue, some dioxazine purple that I might even have touching or mixing with the blue a little bit, and lastly, some ivory black. Now we'll use these colors to paint our first loose flower on the page with. I'll take some of this blue and the number 6 brush and just start forming a loose petal shape here in the left-hand corner of the page. I'll add a little bit of black to the center of the flower here as well and let it bleed into the petals after I've formed them. Now, I probably should have started with a black center first and then form the petals, but that's okay. I just learned a better way of trying this and I will do it on the next flower. As I move around this flower, I will change up the colors of each petal, making some more purple or even a combination of blue and purple, just whatever you're feeling. I'll point out also that the shape and size of your flower and petals can be different than mine as well. Don't feel like yours has to look the same. Now let's mix up some Gamboge yellow and cadmium orange for the next flower. I'll try painting the black center on this one first this time, and then again form some petal shapes around it using a combination of both colors here. Now, I think I've mentioned before that painting loose, or in other words, without an outline, isn't my forte. I personally do better to have an outline drawn that I can easily follow along with and basically just paint in each shape one at a time. I find it more tricky to have no guide, and a blank canvas can actually be intimidating to try to create something that I barely have a vision for, which is why I so often in my tutorials will either show you how to draw the outline for a piece or provide them for you in my Etsy shop. And in fact, when I'm done with this piece, I might actually trace over it and create an outline for this one as well. Maybe you're better at it than me and you enjoy having the loose freedom of the page and freehanding the painting. but I do find it to be more tricky. So if you're a beginner watercolorist and you feel like you're struggling with the loose style, maybe give a pre-drawn outline piece a try. All right, I like the colors going on so far, so let's make another blue and purple flower a little closer to the center of the page now. I'll paint it in the same way as we have just barely done. Now, while we work on that, something else I'd like to talk about for any of you that have felt this way, especially beginners, is the feeling like you are not able to duplicate or recreate the piece that the YouTuber or whoever you're watching just painted. Sometimes you'll also feel like they make it look so easy to do when really it's not. And trust me, I've had these moments myself. And first, I want to say, don't be so hard on yourself. We as instructors and professionals put hours and hours and hours of practice into our work every day so that we can perform well on our recordings that we present to you and teach to you in the best way that we feel like you'll understand it. Now, something else you should know is that we, even as professionals, don't have everything turn out perfect the first time, or at least in my case, even the second or third time we try. If I paint something that looks awful or, in my opinion, was a failure, sort of like how I felt about this particular piece at first, I simply just don't post that painting or recording, and now no one knows that I didn't do well. And as far as not painting it exactly like me or whoever you're watching, that's okay too. That is what makes your artwork unique and special to you. In fact, someone left a comment on one of my videos basically feeling bad that they couldn't do it like me, and someone else actually responded to the fact that even if I redid my own piece, it wouldn't look exactly the same. And they are 100% right. Maybe a little bit later, I'll show you the second version of this exact painting that I created after I thought I had ruined this one. And to tell you the truth, even though I tried to paint it in a similar way, it was different. And I still liked this one better, even though I messed it up. So if you're following along with me today, please don't feel like you have failed if yours turns out different than mine. Okay, I feel like I'm probably talking way too much today, so I apologize for that. I just want to give anyone that feels discouraged or like they're struggling with their artwork to not give up. The most important thing with any painting, in my opinion, is to have fun and enjoy the process. Maybe it won't be a masterpiece every time, but I guarantee you will still be learning and improving each time you try. Now, except for the funny little orange blob of a flower that looks like a funny little fluffy cloud, all of the other flowers here are open face so far. So for this next one, I'm going to paint it as a side-facing flower using some black paint at the base and purple for the petals. In fact, I think I'll add a little bud for this flower as well, using those same colors. My water has gotten pretty tainted here, so before moving on to the next step, I'll go change it out really quick. Now, here at the bottom of the page, I will be adding in the stems and leaves to these flowers I just made. But before I do that, I'm going to paint a background wash of color that will be behind all of that to fill in empty spaces. So using the larger brush, I'll add some Alizarin crimson and sap green to my palette. Then I'll wet down the bottom area of the page with water first. I'm not going all the way to the edges of the page though, and I'll kind of stay under these upper flowers, more on the bottom half of the page, maybe even going around this yellow flower in the bottom corner. I'll just add whatever colors I like, maybe some orange and red, a bit of purple, and maybe even some blue to tie in some of the flower colors from above. But make sure that if you happen to paint blue and orange close together, don't mix and blend them too much or they may turn more of a brown color. If you want to soften the edges of this wash, all you have to do is take your paper towel and dab the edges of it very gently. Now, I want that wash to dry completely before I paint on top of it. So while I wait, I will add a little more to the upper section. So let's have some fun and paint some small curved stalks of flowers. So using the #1 liner, I'll use some of the sap green and paint 3 thin curved stalks. Then with the #6 and some yellow paint, I'll add some small blobs of color that can represent some little flowers or buds. Nothing too special here. We'll do them on each side moving down the stalk. Now you can just leave it at that, or you can come back in and add a small dot of orange color to blend into the yellow as well. On this third little stalk here, I'm actually going to paint some leaves instead of little flowers or buds. I'll start with some yellow leaves first, then move on to some green leaves. For the top part of this little branch, what do you say we make another little purple bud, kind of like we painted this one here? Okay, let's add one more curved stalk of little flowers. This time I'll mix some of the purple and pink together, paint the thin curved stalk with the liner brush first, including a few stems here and there that I can then paint some circular blobby shapes with the #6 brush that can represent flowers or buds or even berries. The choice is up to you. Now, I will say at this point, I actually am really pleased with this loose painting so far. I like the colors, I like the layout. It's actually the next step that I feel like I messed up at a little bit. So let's move on to creating the leafy area on this wash that is now completely dry. I'll just use the number 10 brush and some sap green mixed with maybe a little bit of alizarin crimson to start out. I'll paint a few grassy leaves here off to the right side, then I'll move on to some pure sap green leaves and work my way around using a variety of values, some lighter, some darker. Now, if it helps, feel free to paint the stems of the flowers first. That might just help you better with the placement of where you want to put your leaves. I chose not to do this yet because I was hoping to have some of the leaves more in front of the stems, making the stems almost disappear back behind. Now you can choose whatever way works best for you. Now, so far, so good. I'm liking the leaves up to this point, but then right here is where I make my mistake. So don't follow me at this point. I start off with some darker green. I paint two nice little connected leaves, but then I get a little crazy. And for some reason, I literally don't know why or what happened, but I added another little section off to the right side of this leaf. This, my friends, is where it began to be a slippery slope. I didn't like how that looked, but instead of just leaving it alone and moving on, I kept trying to fix it to make it look better. But the more I fiddled with it, the bigger, the darker, and the more ugly it got. All of a sudden, I found myself with this huge, massive, dark green leaf smack dab in the center here that now became the focal point to my picture. Instead of seeing the fun wildflower scene, all I could focus on was that big, ugly leaf. Now, I'm actually almost done with this painting at this point, so let's go ahead and finish it off. Just don't paint that giant green leaf like I did, and you'll be set. I will come back to how I fixed this problem in just a little bit. So here I'm just finishing this off with a few more leaves. I'll paint in the stems of the flowers that will fade and follow through and around the leaves down to the ground. And then I'll add some small, very light purple-pink leaves here and there to add some more color and fill in some of the gaps. For another optional finishing touch, I also decided to throw in a few loose spots of color that can literally be just that, some loose spots of color, or they can even sort of resemble some loose flower heads that are far in the background. Now, as I'm finishing this off, the only thing that's running through my head is how much I don't like that big green leaf. I loved how everything else turned out except for that one thing. So what do I do now? I don't know, maybe some of you have experienced things like this as well. So thoughts that were running through my head were, I can just call it good, leave it how it is, and just not be very happy with it. Or maybe I shouldn't show this tutorial at all for this week. This is really kind of embarrassing. But at the same time, my deadline's coming. I didn't like the painting, but I don't have something else to do. So then I had the thought, why don't I paint another one just like it, and this time I won't paint that leaf. So my friends, that's exactly what I tried to do. I used this painting as a guide of what worked, what didn't work, and I tried painting this over again. However, like I mentioned earlier, it is really hard to recreate a piece exactly, especially if it's more of a loose, free-handed piece without an outline like this one is. In the end, I disliked the second one more than the first one, so now I'm back to the idea of what now? I literally just had to walk away from this painting for a little bit to think about stuff. I had kind of decided that I just was not going to show this as a video, and I'd try to come up with something new and different. But since I wasn't going to use this piece as a tutorial anymore, I thought, why not take a huge risk and attempt to fix this mistake? So before I tried my idea out on my painting, I did test it out on a scrap piece of paper first to see if it would work. It wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible, so I went ahead with it. I decided to take a little bit of white gouache and separate this giant green leaf into two smaller ones. I painted over the entire middle area of the leaf 2 or maybe even 3 times to completely cover that dark green color. It definitely helped, but the white of the gouache was a different color than the color of my paper, as well as the background wash. In other words, it was still very obvious there was a problem. Now, this was the tricky part. I took some color and very carefully painted back in some thin green lines for the flower stems, as well as a small purple leaf to add some color back in and fill in some of the space. The gouache was a little difficult to paint on because it started mixing a little bit with the watercolor paints that I was putting on top of it. So I'm not sure that I would recommend this as a common quick fix solution all the time, but for me it was worth the risk, and in the end I was much more happy with the final results. I decided to go ahead and show this painting to you today, including my struggles with it, because I just want you to know that you're not alone, especially when it comes to making mistakes and feelings of discouragement and doubt, and even second or third attempts on a project. I hope you continue trying new and hard things, don't give up on your artwork, and I think in the end, you'll be glad you stuck with it. Thank you so much for watching today. If you found this video helpful in any way, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel so I can continue to help you discover your artistic side.